Learning a new design software can be a full-blown
nightmare.
It doesn't matter if you've used design software in the past or if you're completely new, taking that first step is always hard. But once you do, that newfound feeling of confidence, no longer being afraid of all the buttons or panels or widgets, is so rewarding. In this video, my goal is to help you find that confidence in Figma by building out a website section together in 20 minutes. And since we only have 20 minutes, I won't be going into detail on any of the features we cover today. However, if you want to dig deeper, I will be linking additional resources from my channel. Now, before we start, you might wonder, why Figma? Since we don't have a lot of time, let me give you the 4 main arguments. 1. Figma is free. If you're not on a team plan, there is no monthly subscriptions, no one-time purchases. Completely free. 2. Figma was made in collaboration heaven. They were the first design software to introduce multiplayer mode, and they're still the best at it. 3. Figma has a great community. There are thousands of people creating plugins and templates so that you can get your work done faster. And 4. Figma ships fast. I would argue as fast as any software company out there today. And they are constantly delivering on what's requested from their users. Now, the first thing you want to do is to either download the desktop app or just launch Figma in your browser. Then create an account, or if you already have one, sign in. Now you just create a new file, give it a name, and voila, we're ready to get started. I personally really value practicing design with examples I know are live and used in the real world. So today we'll be recreating a website for one of Spotify's sub-companies called Anchor. And by the way, before I forget, if you have any questions whatsoever regarding Figma, leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer as good as I can. Okay, so the first thing we want to do here is to grab a screenshot of the Anchor website. So I'll grab a screenshot here. I'll go over to the Figma client. I'll drag it in. Now, before we get into the design stuff, I want to look at the actual interface of Figma and just talk a bit about it. You'll see here in the left panel, we have something called layers. This is where anything you add into your files is gonna end up. So as you can see here, we have the image, the screenshot. If I click it, I target it. If I double click it, I can change its name. So maybe we call it image. We also have something called assets. We're not going to go through this in this tutorial because it's a get started tutorial. We don't want to bore you with like advanced details at this point. And in the right here, we have page 1. If I click that, I get this drop down with different pages. Now we only have one page when we create a new file, but if you want to create different pages for different pages of your website, this is where you do it, and you would just hit the plus here. So that's the left panel. Layers and pages, main things. The right panel here is where we have the settings for all of the things we have on our canvas. So if I target something, you'll see that I get this settings panel. And depending on what kind of element I target, we're gonna get different kinds of settings. So for this image frame here, we have the x-axis, y-axis, the width, the height, we have the rotation of it, the corner radius. We can change the opacity of this layer. We have a bunch of options. We're gonna get into some of them, not all of them. But that's just the overview. This is the settings panel. In the top, we have our tool belt. So here, first to the left, we have options like settings and all of the classic settings or preferences you would want to find in an app. You find to the left here. Then we have a bunch of tools here. And we're gonna get into some of these as well. The first one we're gonna get into is the frame tool. So F would be the keyboard shortcut for this. So I hit F. And once I do that, you can see that how this right side panel here lights up and we get a bunch of options for different frames. So these would be frame templates. I could also just create my own frame like this, but I want a frame template. So I'll hit F again, hit desktop, and it ends up on my screen once I hit it. I'll double click this name to change it to frame. I'll grab my image and I'll put this image inside of this frame by just simply dragging it inside of the frame like this. Then I'll go up here and I'll change the width to 1440 pixels. And since this little thing here is enabled, everything sizes evenly, which is pretty nice because otherwise we would distort the image. So now we have the image inside here. I want to target my frame and I want to decrease the height of it. And what I could do is I could just grab it like this and decrease the height. And now it covers the full image. So the next step is to take this frame, copy it, Command C or Control C, and then Command V or Control V. And I'll zoom in here because this is where the design part starts. And to mimic this, we're actually gonna grab just the image. We're gonna go to the layer settings here. We're gonna hit this little number here, 100%. And we're gonna bump it down to maybe 20%. Then we're gonna go in here in the layers and hit this lock icon. So we lock this image so that we don't, by mistake, change the position of it while we're doing other stuff. Now this is going to be our reference when we create things. The second thing I'll be using here is the text tool. So I'll hit T for text and I'll just start writing the first kind of link item text here, which is features. Now this text is a bit too big, right? If we look here in the right sidebar, we can see what kind of font we're using. We're using inner, what font weight it is. It's medium currently. The font size, the letter spacing, so the spacing between the letters, the line height, the spacing between lines in our text. What we want to do here is we want to decrease the size. So I'll just do this with my arrow keys. I'll place it on top of it so that I see when it looks kind of right. 16 looks kind of good, but maybe we need to bump up the letter spacing a bit. Maybe it even needs to be a bit thicker, so maybe semi-bold. That looks better. And maybe 1% less, something like that. And you can see that the line height is set to 42 here right now. Maybe we want that to be a bit smaller, so I'll click that. I'll hit auto is what I'll write. Hit enter, and it will take the auto value for this for this font size. Once that's done, I'll just copy this, paste it, drag it over here, and I'll say switch to anchor. Then we'll copy and paste again. Say ads by anchor. Copy paste again. Blog. Cool. The first link items. I'll continue here. So I'll copy and paste. We'll say sign in. And here we can see that it no longer maps. So it seems like this is too big. So I'll bump it down a bit. Maybe we need to bump up the letter spacing a bit. That looks good. Sign in. Copy paste. Sign up. Nice. And copy paste. EN. Cool. All right, so now it's time to use the second thing in our tool belt, which is the resources tab here. And in the resources tab, we can search for plugins in the plugin tab here. And I want to find icons. So I'll just search for icon, and we get a bunch of options, all made by the Figma community. One that I like to use is Lucid Icons. So I'll click Run here, and it runs the plugin. Then I'll just search for World, and we get this world icon here. I'll click that, and it ends up here in our nice little frame. So I'll just grab it. I could either resize it by doing this, but then you can see how it distorts. So I want to hold down Shift if I do that and resize it like this. But I could also go to the settings panel here, hit the constraint proportions, and change just one of these values. So maybe we'll go with 16, and that would be good for now, I think. You could also see here that somehow this globe ended up outside of the frame. So I'll just take this and drag it inside like that. Cool. Let's jump down to the heading here. So I'll hit T again, and I'll write this out. So say it all with anchor. Cool. So we need to bump up the text. I'll hold down Shift to do bigger bumps in text size instead of just 1 pixel at a time. So maybe a bit bigger, 72. I'll decrease the width of this text field, and we'll decrease the letter spacing here as well. Maybe something like that. We'll decrease the line height a bit. I think this looks good, I think. Doesn't have to be perfect. You could tweak it however you want to. I'll hit T again. I'll say Spotify's free. Now this text is very big. Let's bump it down immediately and go back here and see auto in the line height so that it doesn't stay at this big line height that we had, because the text tool is always going to go for the last option you used. So we need to reset it. I go to the text size, bump it down, see if this maps. Yeah, that looks good. I'll write it out. So free podcasting platform, like that. And I'll actually do this, because when I change the size like this, what I did here, you can see right now, this is grayed out. So whatever I write now is just going to continue like this because we have set no fixed value. But if I change the size of this, a fixed value is set. And now we can do whatever value we want to here. So I'll set a fixed value. I'll increase the line height a bit. I'll decrease this letter spacing a bit. And then let's continue writing it out to create, distribute, distribute, and monetize your show. Like that. Cool. Let's jump over to this one, the button. Get started. And now we need to bump down the text size again. I'll just go auto here for the line height once again. Something like that, maybe even smaller letter spacing, tighter. Now I'll use another more advanced option that I actually have a video on if you want to dig into it. That's called auto layout. So I'll hit Shift A to create an auto layout frame out of this. And that's basically almost the same thing as a frame, just that the auto layout frame squeezes things together within it. So it gives me the ability to manipulate things within frames in a different way. Now, like I said, this is more advanced. So if you want to check it out, check out the video in the top. I'll change the size here, put it in the center of my auto layout. I'll increase the width as well, like this. I'll give it a fill, so a background fill to this auto layout. Now it's white by default. I'll bump up the corner radius, and there we have it. Then I'll grab this text again. I'll drag it down here, Shift Command to drag it down like that. Already have a podcast, switch to Anchor, and we can already see that it's a bit too big. So maybe we bump it down to, I don't know, 15 maybe even 14, and give it wider letter spacing. Maybe it is 15. Oh, let's go for 14. Like that. Doesn't have to be perfect at this point. We're just mimicking. I'll hit the R to get this rectangle tool. So I'll drag this out. As you can see, this little icon here we have all of the different shapes we can create. R is for rectangle. Now I'll click into this. I'll go to the fill option, hit this eyedropper tool to take the same color as the text. Cool. Now what we want to do as one of the last steps is use R again. So create another rectangle here, just like that. And now we'll use the resources again, go to plugins, and we'll search for Unsplash. And this is a plugin that allows us to find images within Figma. So we don't have to go outside of the app to find images. So I'll just search for people and we'll grab an image, maybe, I don't know, this one. We just, as we have targeted these or this object, and if we hit an image in here, it's gonna paste it onto that rectangle. So you can create a circle or whatever you want and just go to the Unsplash plugin, click an image, and it's gonna paste it onto that shape. Cool. The last thing, or the second last thing, apart from this logo here that we wanna do is to create this shape here. You can see this wavy thing. And I'm gonna do that real quick by using the pen tool, which is the P. And I have a tutorial on that as well if you wanna learn how to use the pen tool. But for now, I'm just gonna speed through this so that we make it in time. So I'll start creating this shape here. And it's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna look as pretty as this nice wave they've made here. But this is just to show you that you could create most things in Figma just by using the different tools we have at our disposal. So now I'll go into this stroke, I'll just target it, and I'll change the size or the width of the stroke by just going in here, hit Shift, do it in bigger increments. We'll change the color, go here, eyedropper tool, to that. And now it's outside of the frame. Let's put it inside. Now it's inside of the frame, but it's on top of everything. So let's right click on it and say send to back, like that. Okay. And it looks very jagged now. So you could go in here and like make it smoother so that it looks more like the reference material, but like I said, we don't have time for that right now. The last thing we want to do is to go back to our image, unlock it, and we're going to click on the image. We're going to go to the fill here. We're going to go to crop in this menu. We're going to grab these handles and drag it up just so that it covers the logo type here. Like that. We're going to set it to 100% again. And what we just did here is we just took the logo type from this screenshot. So the screenshot is still there, but we've cropped the image. Then I'm going to go to this frame. I'm going to change the fill here, so the background color, to this background color. Then I'm gonna target the frame again, And we'll see here, selection colors. These are all the colors within our frame. I'll change everything that is black currently to white. So I click this, make it white. And we're gonna change some of the things here to yellow. So click this, make it yellow. This text should actually maybe be the background color here. And this one is also gonna be yellow. And you can see the document colors here is something we can use if we don't wanna go back to this one all the time, like this. And that's it. That's how you create a website in Figma. Now, if you feel ready to learn even more about Figma, you can check out my crash course playlist where I cover everything from Figma basics to more advanced stuff. Until the next one though, have a great life. We'll talk soon. Ciao.